All right, today we are going to be diving into a quick little discussion about Blizzard's new approach to add-ons going forward, especially in 11.1.7, which should be coming up soon. The PTR is already available. I don't know if there's anything necessarily new on it, but basically, if you aren't familiar or haven't been paying attention, World of Warcraft, the official channel, just put out a video with Ian Hazzikostas, Max, and Dratnos talking about the new things that are coming to the in-game interface, which I think are great, but I do want to share my thoughts about it, basically. In this video, kind of the main topic was their new addition for the 11.1.7 rotation helper. Now, this is to help combat different add-ons like, essentially rotation helpers like Akili, for example. Funnily enough, some guildies and I were talking last night actually about this very thing. And so it's kind of ironic that we're seeing a video now about it. But basically, Blizzard finds that for new people to get into a class for the first time, it is actually kind of overwhelming, especially during late game. There's all these different hero talents, talent trees in general, as well as all these like nuanced buffs that you have to be tracking. And so Blizzard wants to try to combat the need, or at least the feeling of need, for players to go outside of WoW to download add-ons to help them play their game. So I think this is a great approach. I think it's really important for the game to provide an outlet for players to be able to at least play the game at a competitive level. And that's essentially Blizzard's argument as well. You shouldn't feel the need as a player who wants to be competitive to have to go and get all these external tools. You should be able to reliably play the game however you like at any competitive level without the need for add-ons. Now, add-ons are great for a lot of reasons. They allow you to customize your UI. There's a lot of like convenient factors when it comes to, professions or collecting or transmog or whatever it might be. And Blizzard doesn't want to necessarily remove that, but they definitely want to move away from the need to have rotation helpers. And so they didn't really showcase too much in this interview in particular. They did kind of mention that there's going to be two main features. There is a rotation helper, which is similar to Akili or any of these add-ons that you may have experienced, where the next button they recommend hitting will glow. They also talked about, funnily enough, a one single button rotation macro almost is kind of how they explained it, which is funny because I feel like in the past it was kind of against TOS to have like a pure rotation helper. Now they said there's going to be some caveats to this where there's going to be some GCD penalties that might come into play. But basically for people who are looking to just do world content, or they really want to get into like the lore or their transmog running or whatever it might be, that you're able to jump into a class and essentially opt into using a system where you can just press one button to do your damage rotation. It might not be optimal, but at least you can play the game in the way you like. And I think this is fine. As long as there is some penalty, obviously it's not great if you're able to do your full rotation and do very well in terms of like parsing or your actual like damage throughput just by hitting one button. Obviously that's not super fair and it takes away from like the challenge of actually learning and mastering a class. But I think it's good as an introduction for most players to kind of get into it. So I'm excited to test this on the PTR myself. I'm hoping as soon as it's up, I'm able to jump in and start testing it. Now, I do have some concerns, and these are kind of my thoughts before it's obviously released and we're able to test this ourselves. As a tank player, specifically Brewmaster, but someone who plays multiple tanks, the concern I have is that often these rotation helpers are great for damage, but they're not great for teaching you how to properly use your mitigation. I do have some concern with like uptime. Sometimes these rotation helpers fail to tell you if you should apply like ignore pain or shield block, for example. Sometimes it will suggest purifying too early or too late, or it's waiting for a certain amount of stagger, for example. Demon spikes, like these type of like off the GCD mitigation tools, sometimes these rotation helpers don't do a great job at presenting you with the most accurate information when to use something like dampen harm or shield wall or metamorphosis. Like these types of things can be problematic. And this is really only for the tanks. And I'm not even like with healing too, like healing is more or less subjective based on the situation, based on if people are using cooldowns or not. So I'm a little concerned when it comes to those types of roles. When it comes to damage, I'm pretty confident Blizzard will at least be able to put out something that will allow a casual player to be able to learn the basic rotation. Of course, you can make the argument that rotation helpers are somewhat subjective or suggestive, where it's like you should hit this next, but you don't necessarily have to. From my experience, a lot of players who do use these tools tend to lean on it very heavily. And it's like a really bad very bad version of training wheels where you kind of get in the habit of just hitting whatever is glowing on your screen and you're not really thinking about why you're hitting that button. And if you build a bad habit, it's harder to break that bad habit the further you or the longer you've been using this tool. So personally, I don't advise people using it. I advise people learning the class, but it could be a good stepping stone as long as it's used in the right way. Now for the rest of this video, like Blizzard, Ian specifically kind of goes on how, and they kind of have this nice conversation where they're trying to figure out a balance between allowing visuals or casts or mechanics to be visualized and handled without the need of add-ons, but add-ons have caused them to try to make more challenging mechanics because of the feedback they've received of players who are using add-ons. And obviously, I think the game would be much healthier if you didn't need or rely on all of these different add-ons and weak orders made by people to simplify, I guess, mechanics. I think generally this is a good train of thought. I think depending on how it can be implemented, obviously they don't want to just rip the band-aid off, and Ian mentions this in the video or in the WoWCast episode. And so I'm very interested to see their approach at this and how they're going to implement each system, because they want to add things like nameplate customizations. They want to add some type of details or, I guess, damage meter add-on. Obviously, there's problems with this. If you're just focusing on damage, this could obviously cause toxicity. Most people use an add-on anyways for damage meters, but being able to display the right information that players actually should know or need to know, I think is extremely important. So the way that they can implement this would to obviously be essentially copy details. My hope is that it doesn't prevent details from being used, though. Like some of these add-ons, like specifically weak orders or weak order packages, of course, things like details, I think the customization of it, not just the information that's providing, I think being able to customize it to fit how your UI wants to look, if you care about that, is pretty important. So these are kind of just my initial thoughts, but I am concerned about the rotation helper not providing the best information. We're already seeing this with the cooldown manager, where it's not telling you certain buffs that you might want to track. Or it's saying it's tracking some on some specs, but some not on others. For example, Vivacious Vivification for the Brewmaster Monk. It's being tracked as Brewmaster, but it's not being tracked on other specs, which may want to use it. So there's obviously there's a lot of kind of legwork that Blizzard's going to need to do, and hopefully the community gives proper feedback on what needs to be changed. Anyways, let me know your thoughts down below. I'm interested to see what most people are thinking about this. It's kind of funny that some guildies and I had this conversation last night, literally about the issue with rotation helpers, and this is their plan going into 11.1.7. So anyways, thank you so much to my Patreon supporters who allow me to make content like this. I hope you guys are staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.